On July 19th, Lionel Messi stood on the biggest stage in football and watched someone else lift the World Cup. Spain had just beaten Argentina in extra time, and for a few stunned seconds, the stadium in New Jersey went completely silent. Then came the chaos, and it wasn't the kind anyone expects to see after a trophy celebration. But here's the strange part. For weeks before that final whistle, a very different story had already been building online. Fans, pundits, even former referees had started asking whether Argentina's run to the final had been a little too smooth to be pure coincidence. Somebody gave it a name, and it stuck: Vargentina. Now, just this past week, a completely separate scandal has broken, this time about FIFA itself and the man running it, Gianni Infantino. The player's own global union has accused him of seriously abusing his position as president. So is there a connection here? Was the 2026 World Cup tilted before a single ball was kicked? And if FIFA can't keep its own house in order right now, what does that tell us about everything we watched this summer? Let's go through what actually happened and what's just noise. The 2026 World Cup was always going to be historic. It was the first tournament shared by three hosts, the United States, Mexico, and Canada, and the first with an expanded 48-team field. Argentina arrived as defending champions, chasing something no country had done in decades, back-to-back titles, with Lionel Messi still leading the line in what he'd indicated would be his final World Cup appearance. For over a month, that story looked like it was writing itself. Argentina ground out win after win, often by the narrowest of margins, and made it all the way to the final at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Waiting for them was Spain, led by a new generation headlined by teenager Lamine Yamal. The final itself was tense and goalless deep into extra time, dominated territorially by Spain, but held together by a string of saves from Argentina keeper Emiliano Martinez. Then, in the 106th minute, substitute Ferran Torres pounced on a bouncing ball and buried it with his weaker foot, sending Spain to their second World Cup title. It should have ended there, with a trophy lift and a champion crowned. Instead, the full-time whistle triggered a brawl. Players shoved, punches were reportedly thrown, and match officials had to physically separate both benches. Argentina's players then declined to take part in Spain's celebration and left the pitch. Within days, FIFA confirmed it was opening a formal investigation, not just into the final, but into Argentina's conduct across several matches of the tournament, including a politically charged banner about the Falkland Islands that players had unveiled after beating England in the semifinal. Throughout all of this, Infantino himself had been a constant presence, attending nearly every major match and drawing boos from crowds who felt he was too visible. That visibility is part why when the final whistle blew and Argentina walked away in anger, so many people immediately started asking the same question: had this tournament been fair from the start? Before we get into that, if you've been following this story as closely as we have, go ahead and hit subscribe now, because there's a lot more still unfolding here. Here's where things get interesting. The rigging accusations didn't start after the final. They started weeks earlier, born out of a string of contentious calls that all seemed to break Argentina's way. Take the quarterfinal against Egypt. A video assistant referee review overturned what looked like a legitimate Egyptian goal, ruling there had been a foul on an Argentinian defender in the build-up. Days later, against Switzerland, VAR intervened again, this time to send off Swiss forward Breel Embolo for simulation, a decision plenty of neutral observers thought was harsh. Add those calls to a string of narrow, one-goal knockout wins, including a nervy victory over England in the semifinal, and a pattern started to form online. Fans coined the term Vargentina, a play on similar nicknames used for other clubs accused of getting favorable calls over the years. It spread fast, and it wasn't just casual fans repeating it. Academic researchers who study conspiracy theories in sport pointed out that Argentina's path fit the exact profile that makes these theories take hold. A beloved global superstar in Messi, a governing body with a genuinely messy history, and a string of decisions that, even if individually defensible, added up to something that felt orchestrated once you saw them all lined up together. To be clear, this is where the story gets complicated. Every World Cup produces contentious calls, and every eventual finalist usually gets a handful of decisions that go their way. Plenty of pundits pushed back hard on the rigging idea, arguing Argentina simply managed pressure moments better than their opponents did. But the doubts didn't fully go away, partly because of Infantino's own behavior. During Argentina's dramatic round of 32 win over Cape Verde, a video caught the FIFA president telling an Argentine journalist that he had suffered watching the match before catching himself and adding that he remained neutral. It was a small human moment, but for an organization that insists on strict impartiality, it was enough to reignite the conversation all over again. None of this proves anything was fixed, but it explains why, by the time Argentina walked out for the final, a significant slice of the football world was already primed to see any close call as evidence of a rigged tournament, whether that read was fair or not. This matters because the rigging conversation around one team's path to the final is really just the surface layer of a much bigger question, and that question is about FIFA as an institution. Start with the betting side of things. FIFA's own Integrity Task Force says it monitored the entire tournament and found no suspicious betting activity anywhere across an estimated $240 billion wagered globally. But an independent watchdog called the Group of Copenhagen, which operates under a Council of Europe treaty on match manipulation, reached a different conclusion. After reviewing all 104 matches, it flagged 7 separate incidents worth further scrutiny. The strangest of those involves a red card issued to United States forward Folarin Balogun. His one-match suspension was unexpectedly overturned by FIFA's disciplinary committee, and a prediction market had opened a bet specifically on whether that would happen, something that didn't happen for any of the other 14 red cards handed out during the tournament. FIFA has stood by its finding of no wrongdoing. The watchdog says it's still waiting on a formal explanation. Then there's the politics around Infantino personally. Earlier this year, an international advocacy group filed a formal ethics complaint against him, citing his closeness with United States political leadership, including a newly created FIFA Peace Prize handed out at a ceremony many felt blurred the line between sport and politics. FIFA has always claimed to stay neutral on political matters, which is exactly why that complaint landed the way it did. And here's where things really change, because just this past week an entirely new controversy broke, one that has nothing to do with Argentina at all. FIFPro, the global players' union representing more than 70 national player associations, accused Infantino directly of what it called a profound abuse of presidential power. The trigger was a secretive plan, known internally as FIFA Forward Enterprise, that would have sold private investors a stake in the ownership of the World Cup itself. According to FIFPro, the plan was negotiated behind closed doors and nearly finalized before FIFA's own member federations even knew it existed. FIFA has since shelved the plan and apologized for how it was handled, but its leadership publicly reaffirmed full support for Infantino. That hasn't satisfied everyone. UEFA has said it's lost confidence in his presidency and is weighing a boycott of FIFA competitions, and England's Football Association has already announced it will withdraw its support for his re-election scheduled for March 2027. So when people ask whether the 2026 World Cup was rigged, the honest answer is more complicated than a simple yes or no. There's very little hard evidence that any single match was fixed, but there's a growing, well-documented pile of evidence that FIFA's leadership has a trust problem that goes far beyond any one team or tournament. If this kind of deeper dive is what you come here for, this is a good moment to subscribe, because we're only getting started with where this goes next. Think about it from the player's side for a second. Messi came into this tournament with a real shot at doing something no one his age had done, winning back-to-back World Cups. Instead, he's left with a runner-up medal and a final that will be remembered more for a brawl than for the football, in what was likely his last appearance on that stage. His teammates haven't made that easier. Leandro Paredes and Nahuel Molina are now facing formal FIFA charges connected to the post-game scuffle, alongside assistant coach Roberto Ayala. Head coach Lionel Scaloni had to publicly address the team's behavior afterward, saying that if Argentina knows how to win with class, it needs to show it knows how to lose with class too. For fans, the emotional whiplash has been real. Argentine supporters spent the tournament defending their team against rigging accusations, only to watch that same team lose the final and then become the story for entirely different reasons. Neutral fans, meanwhile, are stuck holding two separate frustrations at once: skepticism about how some of the officiating played out, and genuine disappointment at how the final ended off the pitch. Even the officials weren't spared. Slavko Vincic, the referee who took charge of the final, was widely praised as the tournament's best official, earning international awards for his composure under pressure. Just 1 week after the final, though, he announced his retirement from refereeing altogether. Would this affect your excitement for the next Argentina match or for the next World Cup cycle in general? That's genuinely worth sitting with for a second. So what happens from here? On the Argentina side, FIFA's disciplinary committee still hasn't issued final rulings on Paredes, Molina, Ayala, or the Argentine Federation itself. No deadline has been set. The range of possible outcomes is wide, everything from fines and stadium restrictions up to multi-match suspensions that could carry into future World Cup qualifying. On the FIFA side, the picture is even messier. The Players' Union has demanded real governance reform, not just an apology. UEFA's threatened boycott, if it actually happens, would be one of the most serious institutional splits football has seen in years. And with Infantino's re-election vote sitting on the calendar for March 2027, every one of these controversies is likely to get dragged back into the conversation between now and then. The best-case scenario here is straightforward, even if it's not guaranteed. FIFA could use this moment to actually open up its decision-making, publish clearer criteria for VAR and disciplinary calls, and rebuild some of the trust it's lost with both players and fans. Some of that pressure is already working, given that the Forward Enterprise Plan was pulled the moment it became public. The worst-case scenario is just as easy to picture: a slow-moving credibility crisis where every close call at every future tournament gets read through the lens of who benefits, regardless of what actually happened on the pitch. That's a genuinely bad outcome for a sport that depends on people trusting what they're watching is real. Which country do you think benefits most if FIFA does end up making real changes here? It's worth thinking about before the next major tournament rolls around. Before we wrap up, if you want to catch how the Argentina disciplinary case and the FIFA governance story both play out, subscribing is the easiest way to not miss it. So let's bring this back together. There are really two different stories tangled up in that headline about a rigged World Cup. One is about Argentina's path to the final, a mix of contentious VAR calls, narrow wins, and a FIFA president who didn't always look neutral, all of which fueled a conspiracy theory that's impossible to fully prove or fully dismiss. The other story is bigger, newer, and arguably more serious. It's about whether the people running FIFA can be trusted to run it fairly at all. And that question has nothing to do with Messi, Argentina, or any single match. It's about secretive ownership deals, disputed betting reports, and a players' union that's now openly using words like abuse of power. What do you think is really going on here? Was this a case of one team getting the rub of the green while a completely separate governance scandal happened to break at a bad time? Or is there something more connected between how this tournament was run and what's coming out about FIFA right now?